If you've ever opened Adobe Photoshop or Adobe Illustrator and thought to yourself, wait, aren't these the same things? You're not alone. A lot of beginners do this. I remember feeling the exact same way when I first started graphic design. They both let you create artwork. They both have brushes, shapes, layers, and text. They even have very similar looking toolbars. And so that leaves a lot of beginners wondering, why does Adobe even have two programs? Here's the thing though. Choosing the wrong program isn't just inconvenient. It actually creates extra work for you. It has the potential to make your files look blurry, or it could leave you wondering why something looked great on your screen, but then when you go to print it, it doesn't. So today I'm going to tell you the difference between Photoshop and Illustrator in plain English. Not any complicated technical jargon. Not assuming that you already know the basics. By the end of this video, you'll understand what each program was made for, when to use each one, and which one I think that beginners should use first. So let's jump in. I think one of the biggest reasons that beginners get confused is because Photoshop and Illustrator can actually do the same things. You could draw in Photoshop, you could type in Photoshop, you can create shapes, and Illustrator can also use images, text, and gradients. So it starts to feel like two different versions of the same software. But that's kind of like saying that your phone camera and a video camera could actually do the same thing because they both take pictures. Technically, sure, but practically, not really. The difference isn't what they can do, it's what they were built to do. Instead of talking about software for a minute, let's just pretend that you're making art. Imagine I hand you two options. The first is a canvas and a set of paints. And then the second is a giant box full of perfectly cut paper that you could arrange into any shape you want. Both make beautiful artwork, but they work very differently. Painting is done by tiny brush strokes that all blend together, whereas cut paper, it keeps the crisp edges no matter how you arrange it. And that is essentially the difference between Photoshop and Illustrator. Photoshop is a lot like painting, whereas Illustrator, it's more like building. Photoshop creates images by pixels. If you've never heard that before, don't worry. Pixels are simply tiny colored squares. Any photo that you've ever taken is made up of tiny little colored dots. And when they're all together, your brain sees the detailed image. And if you zoom in enough, then you start seeing the tiny colored squares, because the image has a fixed amount of information. Imagine you're printing a wallet-sized photo. It looks great. Now imagine stretching that photo across a building. Those pixels suddenly have to cover a larger area. And when they stretch, the image becomes blurry. That's exactly what happens in Photoshop. Illustrator works completely differently. Instead of storing tiny colored squares, it actually stores mathematical instructions. For instance, instead of saying this colored pixel is blue, it says draw a line from here to here, or create a circle with this diameter. Every shape is calculated mathematically. And that means when you're making something bigger, Illustrator has the ability to recalculate those instructions. Nothing stretches, nothing gets blurry. Everything stays perfectly sharp. And that's what we mean when we say that Illustrator files don't have any pixel boundaries. Whether it's the size of a post stamp or the size of a skyscraper, it will look sharp. And that's why as designers, we tend to create logos in Illustrator. A company, they're going to want to use the same logo on a business card, a website, a t-shirt, a skyscraper, the side of a delivery truck, so it needs to work everywhere. Here's the funny part, neither. It's kind of like asking whether a hammer is better than a screwdriver. It depends on what you're trying to build. Photoshop isn't meant to replace Illustrator or vice versa. They're teammates. Professional designers, we tend to move between the two programs depending on the project. So Photoshop, it tends to shine when you're working on highly detailed images. Editing portraits, Photoshop. Editing backgrounds, Photoshop. Correcting photos, Lightroom, but that's a conversation for another day. You could do it in Photoshop too. Painting digitally, Photoshop. Creating realistic composites where you're combining multiple photos together, definitely Photoshop. Anytime that your project depends on rich textures, colors, or shadows, realistic details, Photoshop is usually your better choice. Think of social media graphics, YouTube thumbnails, photo manipulation, concept art, digital paintings. Those are all areas where Photoshop excels. And Illustrator, that's the opposite. It loves clean, scalable graphics, logos, icons, branding identities, infographics, packaging, typography, illustrations, maps, stickers, anything that needs clean lines and perfect scalability. And one of my favorite examples, as I already mentioned, is company logos. If someone sends me a logo that was made in Photoshop, which has happened before, I know immediately it might be a problem later, because eventually someone is going to ask for that logo to be bigger. And suddenly it's blurry. When it's created in Illustrator instead, that problem doesn't really exist. So here's the mistake I see all the time. A beginner wants to make a logo, so they open Photoshop. After all, that is the program they heard of, right? They spend hours making something that they absolutely love, and then they send it to the printer, and then the printer asks, do they have the vector version? Cue the panic. And now a designer like me has to recreate everything in Illustrator. And it's not because the logo is bad. It's because the software wasn't designed for that job. And actually, I've seen the opposite too. Sometimes people try to edit photos in Illustrator. Could you? Technically. Would I recommend it? No. You make life so much harder than it has to be. Eventually, probably, but not immediately. I don't think beginners have to master every Adobe program. That type of mindset, it usually leads to being overwhelmed. Instead, my little tip for you is to master the one that aligns with the type of work that you want to create. If your dream is photography, photo editing, digital painting, or creating more like eye-catching social media graphics, then I recommend you start with Photoshop. If you want to design things like logos, branding, and illustrations, or anything that might be made for print, start with Illustrator. As your skills grow, you naturally start to realize which programs actually make your life easier. That's exactly how all professionals learn. Not all at once, but one project at a time. And one thing that I personally love about Adobe programs is that they're all kind of made to kind of work together. I might build a logo in Illustrator and take it into Photoshop and create a realistic mock-up, or edit a photo in Photoshop and then place it in Illustrator. The programs, they're not really made to compete with each other. They solve different problems. That is why you tend to see designers use multiple Adobe applications on the same project. If you only remember one thing from today's video, let it be this. Photoshop is for pixels, and Illustrator is for vectors. Photoshop is amazing for detailed photo editing, and Illustrator is perfect for graphics that need to remain sharp. Neither program is more professional. Neither one is better. They are simply built with different jobs in mind. And once you understand that, then choosing between them becomes much easier. So if you've been feeling overwhelmed by Adobe's software, I hope this video helped clear up some of the confusion, because every designer starts exactly where you are now. We open these programs and silently wonder to ourselves, why are there two of them? Now I'd love to hear from you. Which program are you learning right now? Is it Photoshop or Illustrator, or both? And if you found this video helpful, don't forget to give it a like and subscribe. And I'll see you in the next one. Happy designing! Bye!